Before I really dive in, I want everyone to know, I'm also a mother too. We're all here trying to do the best for our kids. So, keep that in the back of your mind and just know, every change that you do does make an impact, and we're all on this journey together, okay? So let's dive on in. I have a quote here that says, we give the child nourishing food so that his little body may grow. And in just the same way, we must provide him with suitable nourishment for his mental and moral growth. I like this because it shows us that children need nourishment for their physical growth as well as their mental and moral growth. We all want to raise our kids to be children of God. So we really want to nourish them to raise them up to be those children of God the best that they can be. So these next few slides that I'm going to go over, we'll go over some studies, some research that's out there. If some of it kind of gets a little in depth, don't try not to let it overwhelm you. I just like to put all the evidence out there. And then if there's any questions, please ask as we go through this. So this first research looks at the connection to brain health. So they have found that children and youth with hyperactivity or attention deficit disorders have high ratios of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. Have all of you heard of omega-6s, omega-3s? So we know omega-3s are going to be better for us, better for our brain health as compared to our omega-6s. The optimal ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s is less than 4:1. The average American diet is around 20:1, which is pretty substantial. And that's due to a lot of our processed foods, seed oils. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. We still need omega-6s, like we need omega-3s. We just don't need as much as what the average American is consuming. You can see here, omega-6s are essential for brain function, cell growth, heart health, and omega-3s reduce inflammation and oxidative stress, may reduce exercise-induced muscle soreness, also helps with brain and eye health as well. We'll talk about sources of omega-3s as the presentation goes on, but you can see here, chia seeds, flax seeds, sardines, salmon, walnuts are some of the more common sources. And then as far as omega-6s go, we have seed oils, and we have like almonds and pumpkin seeds that are also sources of omega-6s. And the reason we look at fat so in depth is that the brain is 60% fat, is almost fully developed by the age of 5. So it's really important that we're feeding our little ones the right sources of fat because it makes a big impact, and being that it's about almost fully developed by the age of 5. So we really want to make sure from a young age we are giving them the right sources of dietary fat. And we can start this prenatally. So there are studies out there linking what you eat when you are pregnant to the the child's development later on. So this picture here looks at diet association with anxiety and depression symptoms and personality traits. So they found that when the mother eats the Nordic diet, which is mainly a whole foods-based diet, less processed foods, less sugar sweetened beverages, focusing on game meats and grass-fed meats and eggs, that there has been lower depression symptoms in children, lower anxiety symptoms, and also positive personality traits. The children could be more extroverted, conscientious, better imaginations, and emotionally stable. So we can start that foundation from the get-go. So keep that in mind that, it's important to fuel the kids after birth, but also while they are in the womb as well.
Hi, I have a question. Oh no, where did the text come from? Actually, I even like, but no, it showed up.
I don't
What's going on? Please do. I'm sorry.
Next, we're going to talk about sugar a little bit. Do any of you that have children feel that your kids react differently to sugar, or can you tell after they've had a bunch of sugar? What types of symptoms or reactions would you say that they have? Hyper? Do any of them kind of act out a little bit maybe? Or get more aggressive? I know my daughter, I can tell if she has sugar, I'm like, oh, we need to back that off a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's because sugar really does and can impact the little ones. So, and this slide shows that it shows 5 ways that sugar can cause hyperactivity and ADHD-like symptoms. So the high glycemic foods can cause hyperactivity. There's also a foraging instinct from fructose, which can contribute to ADHD. So fructose is a component of table sugar that is absorbed directly into the blood. It's used in many processed foods and drinks. Have all of you heard of high fructose corn syrup before? That's one of the more common ones. A big no-no to try to stay away from because it's definitely linked. Yeah.
Can you explain what the foraging instinct, what that is or what that looks like?
So it would be more so, and Lisa actually sent me this study.
Yeah,
Basically,
just what they had found.
emulates those symptoms even more, like directly, from my
They were-
understanding.
Right, they were showing that when they had like fructose being like keeping your blood sugar low, it almost put them into like a starvation mode where they were like they're looking for food, they're like in starvation mode where they're kind of getting, a little blood sugar anxious a little bit. And so like, that's why they might be extra snacky and they, like I just fed you and yes. And, so it's not filling them. And then it puts them into like, almost like this instinctive, like, where I've got to eat and I've got to, and so then they don't know what to do. We always we probably had that before. You get low blood sugar and you kind of get shaky and you're just you can imagine we're just chasing that extra, sugar spike. And so it just almost puts us into that like kind of starvation mode where they're like looking and then more impulsive and things like that too. So
Yeah. And sugar actually depletes our energy as compared to giving us more energy. So that also, when you have a bunch of sugar, that's why you have kind of that crashing type of concept. Sugar and low dopamine. Dopamine is that feel-good hormone, can exacerbate hyperactivity. Sugar contributes to poor impulse control, kind of going off that foraging instinct. You're kind of at that edge and you're like, gotta find something to eat, I'm hungry. And then low blood sugar can lead to poor concentration and inattentiveness as well. So there is a lot of research out there from this Dr. Wooler. And Dr. Wooler is a functional medicine physician who specializes in children and behavioral disorders. So if you feel like you have kids or maybe kids in the classroom who have, are displaying some of these behaviors, there's always ways to get to the root cause. And this physician here has studied this in depth. And there's all kinds of common culprits, like high oxalates. And I won't go into too much detail about what each of these are. But this just goes to show you that, there's hope and that you can find or get to that root cause of whatever may be causing that symptom. So high oxalates can be culprits of behavioral disorders. High quinolinic acid, as far as autism goes, a lot of that inflammation, there's food sensitivities, fungus, environmental toxins, and poor detoxification, and methylation. So all of these could be reasons that we could be having behavioral disorders in children, teens, adolescents, and even adults as well. So there's lots of research out there. So getting to that root cause is always very important. Next, we'll talk about insulin resistance as a little bit. So insulin acts as that key to unlock your cell to let the energy in. Whenever we have insulin resistance, that key doesn't fit into our cells and we can't let the energy in. We have a buildup of insulin in our body, which can cause a cascade of events. Some symptoms of insulin resistance could be abdominal obesity, difficulty losing weight, cravings for sugar, fatty liver, brain fog, high blood sugars, of course, even things like skin tags, dark patches on the skin, high blood pressure, frequent urination, and thirsty all the time. This study found that children with high levels of insulin resistance starting at age 9 are 5 times more likely to be at risk for schizophrenia or bipolar disorder by the time they turn 24. That's pretty substantial. So, laying the foundation at a young age by watching what we feed our kids, watching our sugar, making sure we get enough protein and things like that. We'll talk about that as we go on. It's going to be very important.
And to me, that always is just like schizophrenia and bipolar are always these like, oh, untouchable things, or just sorry, you just had bad genetics or just by chance, but like we're finding out that it's like a metabolic issue that number one is reversible, which is really hopeful, but then also like, oh my gosh, like we didn't fully understand how this even operated. So it's really good news, but also, yeah, we've got to just something we should be aware of. And then we'll kind of talk about labs that make sense for kiddos like that, because it's like everybody should be testing for that. It's such a simple and easy thing that we can see, coming. So
this study here looks at insulin resistance and seed oils. Down here, you may not be able to see it, but it starts at 1909 on that end, and then it goes all the way up to 2020. And you can see that our seed oil consumption has drastically increased over the years. Lots and lots of more processed foods. And you can also see diabetes and pre-diabetes has also increased. So they do go hand in hand, as shown by this study here. Next, we'll move on to some popular topics that are in the media. Starting off with our food dyes. Have all of you heard about food dyes or heard of food dyes? Unfortunately, they're in lots of our common foods. There's red 40, red 3, yellow 5, yellow 6, green 3, blue 1, blue 2. So a lot of these can cause hyperactivity in kids. Children have been found to be more vulnerable to the effects of food dyes as compared to adults. Some kids are more sensitive than others as well. There has also been some studies out there that link food dyes to things like asthma and hives, different types of skin conditions that they could have. Fortunately, Aldi is great, and they have a lot of different brands, or the Aldi brand itself are generally safe and free of food dyes, but you can always check that nutrition label to verify if there's any of these food dyes on there. You may not always see red 40 or red 3. You have to be careful because sometimes they can phrase it in a different way. That's a food dye, but I always say the least ingredients, the better on a food label, so keep that in mind when you're looking at that as well.
And they have to list that as a food dye, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Cause I know like natural flavors isn't good either, but I know that's like a big umbrella term.
Yeah,
Dyes would be separate.
correct. They
Okay.
can't put dyes under the natural flavors
Gotcha.
category.
Do you think Aldi is safe because it's European based?
I would guess, yeah, because there's, in other countries, there are foods that are banned that aren't banned in the United States, and Europe being one of those, so that correlation would make sense to me, yeah.
Their brand still has a lot of seed oils though.
still have to look for that. Yeah.
Since you got one without one, but then you got the
Yeah.
other, so Yeah, it takes a while to find those ingredients and those products that meet those qualifications, but once you find them, it's like, okay.
It seems about every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they'll put out some sort of snacky thing that has avocado oil in it. And I buy up like 6 or 8 or 10 bags of whatever that is,
Aldi
you
does?
know, Aldi does. So like right now they have like a balsamic potato chip that is avocado oil based. I, grab those up, and then they had like little cheese balls that are, avocado oil based or whatever. That's like, and you can get it like, Costco has like siete chips that are avocado, we'll talk about that a little bit, but just since you brought it up, but yeah, you do kind of.
So what, like, is it a trick when it says organic sunflower seed oil?
Right,
That's a trick.
yeah, so.
They think it's like the processing of it, like it might be organic to begin with, but when they process it, that's what
I've been
causes
seeing that
the
a lot lately, and I'm
rancidness.
like,
Yeah.
They try to
Seems
add
like
that,
a-
and it's like, hey, it's organic, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
still seed oil at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So actually, last week on the 15th, the FDA banned red food, or red number 3. Have all of you heard that? That they banned that food dye, which is great. This food dye is found in over 9,200 of our foods. So food manufacturers have until, I believe it's January 25th, 2027 to get this out of their products. So don't feel like they enacted it and it's gone forever. They have a while to get it out of their products. And I think like dietary supplement companies and other drug manufacturers have an additional year. So they have until 2028 to reformulate their products. So it'll still be hanging around here for a little bit, but there's hope that it'll be out sooner rather than later. Here is an ingredient list, just comparing yellow cake mixes. And you can see here down at the bottom, yellow 5, Lake, red 40, Lake. So they're usually listed at the bottom of the ingredient list. So always try to read that and be on the lookout for that. Something, simple like a cake mix, you're like, oh, there shouldn't be any food dyes in that, and it does have food dyes. So like, even if it could be an organic cake mix, though this one is, and it doesn't have any food dyes. Try not to do a whole big thing, thinking, oh, it's organic, clean of everything. Sometimes that's not always the case.
Because you have that up there, Beth, I'm gonna, the other one, it's really small up there, but see how it says organic enriched? Bleached white flour, the other one that you mentioned, methylation, have you heard of that? And so, MTHFR is that gene mutation you might have heard before, MTHFR for methylation. That's another one that, like, if you're noticing kids are like, just bounce off the walls, can't figure it out. That's another one to just watch if you're putting anything enriched, because that's where they've added folic acid to them. And that can be one other culprit that either, genetically they have some sort of gene mutation there, or they're not able to methylate, they're not able to produce that. So I just bring that up because it's another one that I look for, just like, is it enriched or is it not enriched? And we don't want it enriched. They thought we've all needed folic acid. It's not a form that we can break down. So, not to get nitty gritty, but just I saw that up there to make me think of that.
Yep. Here's just some swaps. So food dyes can be in things as down from your fruit snacks, sprinkles, common culprit, M&Ms, of course. Even some of your medications as well, trying to go for the dye-free if you need that for your little ones. Next, we look at seed oils. Common seed oils are going to be our canola, rapeseed, corn, cottonseed, soybean, sunflower, safflower, grapeseed, and rice bran. Here's a chart here. It looks at 1909 over to 2019. And you can again see that our seed oil consumption has just skyrocketed over the past 20 years. And they put seed oils in just about everything these days. Chips, coffee creamer, popcorn, mayonnaise, french fries, granola bars, your baked goods. They can be in just about everything. So even though you may not think, oh, it won't have seed oil in it, it still can have it. So check out that ingredient list. The reasons that seed oils can harm our bodies so much is that they have to go through all of this processing. So you take your seed oil, they add heat and pressure, hexane, bleaching, deodorizing. It goes through oxidation, which can introduce harmful toxins, like some of these. And then all of this can result in things like obesity, diabetes, cancer, brain fog, carb craving, heart disease, autoimmune disorders, and chronic fatigue. For any of those, do any of you feel like you have a reaction after you eat things with seed oils, or can you feel any reaction immediately? I know some people are more sensitive than others to the seed oils. Not too much.
My kids do.
Your kids?
Cut out soy.
Soybean, yeah.
I noticed I'll get more like canker sores or things if I like, I don't know, it's like game day, like last night's game day or whatever, and like if I don't eat the right kind of chips or like you're at a party and it's like, oh, why did my mouth is breaking out, it's like
Yeah,
the irritation, but
yeah, and sometimes it's nice to look at things like that, like, why do I have an irritation in my mouth? What did I eat? And it's like, oh,
yeah.
I ate tortilla chips that had seed oils or something like that. So sometimes it's nice to make those correlations. Some better alternatives would be things like avocado oil that we talked about, coconut oil, olive oil, except at high temperatures, ghee, butter, or tallow. All of those would be good to look for in the ingredient list. This slide talks about that a little bit more. Tallow, ghee, butter, coconut oil. It talks about tallow and ghee being okay at all temps. Butter, grass-fed butter being good for raw to medium temps, and coconut oil low to medium temps. They all have low amounts of processing as well. So definitely going to be healthier fats for us and for our little ones.
I just have a quick question going back to the oils. When it says unrefined and then on the coconut oil, and you'll see some bottles that have refined, can you say what the difference is? Unrefined, and then there's refined oil, coconut oil.
So from my understanding, that's the processing. Lisa, do you know this off the top of your head?
Refining is a step in processing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it adds another
Another step.
step of processing. Yes. Good question. Here are some approved brands. Some of you may have heard of these or tried some of these. Boulder Canyon, found at Kroger and Amazon. Siete, again, Walmart, Kroger, Amazon. Dave's Killer Bread, Kroger. Costco and Aldi, again, have some good alternatives made with coconut oil and avocado oil. Here are just some clean snacks. Again, this isn't all inclusive, but just a few. You see that Siete brand, the Lesser Evil brand. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that one. I know Aldi will sometimes have that one, usually made with like coconut oil or an avocado oil. A few other ones, but there's a whole host of good clean brands. Next, looking at added sugars. I know we talked about this a little bit already, but just to go a little bit more in depth, like we said, sugar depletes our energy instead of giving us more energy. Increased added sugars have been linked to obesity and metabolic issues, type 2 diabetes, dental issues, mental health, and our behaviors as well, like we talked about. So just to let you guys know, whenever you're looking at added sugars on the nutrition label, you can find it under total sugars. It's always indented there, and it'll tell you the amount that has been added. You can also then look on the ingredient list to see, okay, it says added sugars. Where's that added sugar coming from? Is it coming from table like sugar? Or is it coming from honey? Where is that coming from? But we see here the amount of added sugars. If you see 23, that's quite high.
They're in the old basement. What? The old basement kind of.
That's quite high, so probably something to put back on the shelf.
I think I got caught the other night. I forget what I was looking at. I'm like, oh, great. Like this has a lot of protein, like no sugar. And then you're always kind of like, wait a minute, like they're trying to trick me, and it had sucralose, which is that Splenda, which is now we're finding has a lot of other negative effects. You're like, oh, darn, almost got me, or I'll do that before and you'll take it home. Like, oh, I thought this was good, so.
If you
Yeah.
see anything with that OSE at the end of its name, that's usually an indicative of a sugar. Dextrose, sucralose, all of those would be a sugar. And as far as sugar and seed oils, they are addictive. You can see the impact that it has on our brain here. Similar impact that drugs and obesity. So, it really does impact us and it is addictive, which is the hard thing too. So if we can limit the amount that we give our children, they'll be better off in the long run.
So give yourself some grace. Start.
Oh, yeah.
Start.
As far as the recommendations go, 2 and younger, they recommend no added sugar. I know they may have some here and there, but the more that we can limit it, the better. And then 2 and above, they say less than 25 grams or 2 tablespoons a day. I don't expect you guys to measure things out and things like that, but just less is always going to be better. The average American child consumes about 81 grams of sugar per day, which is over 65 pounds of sugar per year. That is a lot of sugar. So better alternatives would be things like honey, local honey would be good. Here's one that we have at Victress. It has antiviral and antibacterial properties. 100% pure maple syrup, monk fruit, and stevia would all be okay as well. Do be careful with the stevia though. Sometimes they like to add things to that, like maltodextrin or erythritol. Ideally, we would just like stevia on the raw. Yeah.
Can I ask about the monk fruit too? Every time I find monk fruit in something, it also has like ethanol or something like that in it, which is like an artificial sweetener, I think.
Erythritol.
Yeah.
That probably.
Sugar,
Yeah.
alcohol.
Is
Yeah.
that like, I feel like it would just, it's the thing making it sweet, not the monk fruit. Would that be?
Especially if that's going to be
Something to
listed
avoid.
first, if it says erythritol and then monk fruit, that'll tell you that it has more of the erythritol than it does the monk fruit, and so it is hard to find. I usually personally don't really use monk fruit or stevia very often because it's hard to find brands around here that don't just contain monk fruit and just stevia.
Usually, I'm buying like protein powders or something that are, have a little bit extra monk fruit. But so erythritol was found to contribute to cardiac issues. So things like heart attack and stroke. So I'm still finding it in toothpaste. Like if you've seen the what is it? Hypoxy. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Like they're all still like all the toothpaste still have erythritol. So I don't know, but I guess maybe if it's just small amounts, but that's why we've just completely stopped doing erythritol at all because they started linking it to cardiac issues. So it's like done. Stevia, they found some people get impacted with gut health, like it starts affecting your microbiome a little bit. So that's why it's like use it in minimally or smaller amounts. But yeah. So it
For
is
something like
plant-based, but
the protein powder, we'd rather see, monk fruit or stevia as the sweetener as compared to like sucralose or Splenda on there. But just buying it in the raw, it is a little bit harder to find just with one ingredient.
And xylitol is essentially the same as erythritol.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be really good for dental health.
Right.
You just don't want to like eat it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm finding out. Let me text Dr. Slonkowski and I'll find out.
That's
for you.
pretty
Yes, I'll text him and find out what the skinny is on that, but yeah.
So what do you feed your kids? These next few slides will give you some tips as far as what we can give our children. But the biggest rule of thumb is if you cannot figure out what plant or animal it came from, it's probably a really good choice. Like I said, when you're buying products, looking at that ingredient list, if it's a paragraph, put it back on the shelf. We want minimal minimal processing and minimal ingredients. And we really especially want to focus on proteins and high fat meats, less emphasis on our snacks. So, going for getting your meat from a local butcher, grass-fed meat would be great. Grass-fed eggs or chickens with eggs, that would be great too. Really starting their day off with something high in protein can really, set the foundation for the rest of that day. So instead of going for the cereal and, bagels and breads and things like that, make sure you're pairing that, if they do have that, with some sort of good protein as well. It's
Anybody have
also-
tips for breakfast? I feel like that's a challenging one. What are your go-tos? What's
I
working?
started making muffins with cottage cheese. They're like chocolate chip muffins with cottage cheese because it's a struggle. And we have chickens and my one boy will eat so many eggs, but the other 4,
Right.
they're on and off. So
Yes.
I've noticed that with cottage cheese, it works. It works for them.
Yeah.
And they have no idea what's in it.
I
Just
feel
doesn't leave the room.
Does not.
I've really dove into the cottage cheese craze a little bit. You can
Uh-huh.
make like cottage cheese pancakes and.
You can
I
add it
put
to the
in my soup
eggs.
last night and
Mhm.
you can really add it into anything and you blend it up and makes
Mhm.
things nice and creamy and you have no idea that
Yep.
it's in there. So there's all kinds of recipes out there with cottage cheese. So that is a great suggestion. Then you can add like protein powder or something like that to a clean protein powder, which would be a good way to get some more protein.
I could do the protein balls.
Yes.
And so then I could, make a bunch and like freeze them. It takes some time to make, so.
Right, yeah.
We've been doing smoothies, cause that's the only thing throw protein powder in there. and
Yeah.
It's the only thing they'll eat,
Keeps
but
them
they'll
so
eat it
full.
for 2 weeks and then they will hate it and won't. eat it.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Same with the
Yes,
protein
yeah.
balls.
Kale and like.
Oh, no,
vegetables,
they'll know.
so
They'll know.
It turns green.
Yeah.
We've also done chia pudding a lot, and I put protein powder in that too, but just getting that more chia seeds.
Mhm.
We just do like plain yogurt and then add like honey to it.
Yeah, that's great. And you can even add protein powder to that too.
Yeah.
Sometimes kids think it's fun if you like, oh, you put the powder in and then they stir it up. That could be another way to add a little bit more protein to something like that.
You go to Davis Meats in Sydney, they get their pork from actually someone local, Owen Michael, I don't know, but they make it in-house. And so I find that their stuff that says like store made has way better ingredients than like Eckrich, which is just like what they have at Walmart and stuff like that. And they have breakfast, frozen breakfast sausage links that they make in-house. And I'll like bake that in the oven one morning and then we'll reheat it in the microwave for like quick protein.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
that's a
My
really
kids
good
each
idea.
eat one stick a morning, and,
Yeah, that's great. Start small, be patient, try improving one meal at a time. So, it's very overwhelming if we're like, oh, I'm doing everything wrong. I need to rewrite the entire menu for the month, maybe pick whatever meal, maybe it's breakfast. Oh, it's really hard to get my kids to sit down, eat something wholesome for breakfast before they go to school or go to the sitter. Maybe brainstorm, we just gave some ideas of different things that you could do to maybe make in advance, to ease that meal for you. And it'll be better off for the kids as well, but maybe it's, like I said, maybe it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever, but try to, plan in advance. The more that you plan ahead, the easier it will become. And start small. Maybe you just start with 3 meals a week, and then you can gradually increase to 5 meals a week. Go on from there. Pair new food with familiar flavors. So if you are going to introduce a new food, try to pair something else with it that your kids may like. So like, for example, this dish here, if they've never ate, let's pretend, green beans before. We could pair it with maybe their other favorite vegetable, whether it be peas or or corn, and you could just say, oh, these are green beans, these are good for you too. And providing that education for your kids too is also important. Kind of say, oh, this will help you to be healthy and, you know, stay strong and do well in sports and things like that. Just, you know, empower them and get them excited about trying something new. Involve kids and make mealtime fun. Let them help with food prep and meal planning. So the kids love to help. They love to feel like they're a part of things. So the more that you can involve them with your food preparation, the better. I know my daughter always is like, let me pull up my stool, and she tries to help so much, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, embrace the mess if things get messy. Kids are only young once, but you know, try to involve them, and it really, I do think, makes an impact over time, and they get excited, like, oh, I helped mommy make the soup, and I poured in the beans or something like that, and they do get excited about that. Try to have healthy choices readily available. Of course, if we keep things that are unhealthy in the house, kids are smart and they'll know that it's there, and they will always know that it's in there. So try to have fruit, veggie trays available, whether you have to have a little dip with that to kind of get them to eat it, that's okay. But the more that we have readily available fruits and vegetables or other healthy options at our fingertips, the more kids will be more prone to eat that. Talked about a lot of this already. As far as what do we feed our kids, start with education. Like I said, you know, educate your kids. Like, oh, we're gonna try something red today, and this is high in vitamin C. And vitamin C can keep you healthy, especially during the winter months when it's so cold outside and kids are sniffling. And you know, just kind of educating them and getting them excited about trying different foods. Watch the sugary drinks. Watch your rewards and celebrations. So, you know, instead of rewarding with candy or a treat, think about how else you can reward your kids. We just potty trained my daughter, and we gave her little potty prizes. So her potty prizes were little stickers or things that we bought from the dollar store. We had it in a basket, and every time she went potty, she got a little prize. And little things like that can get kids excited too, as compared to a food reward. And be a role model. Kids really do imitate what the adults do. So, you know, they see you grabbing something after dinner and they're like, oh, mommy, what is that? And you're like, oh, it's our chocolate. And they'll be like, oh, chocolate? I want chocolate. So, you know, kind of be cognizant of that, but they do like to imitate what you do. So be the best role model that you can. When kids need more, there are a few steps. I gave each of you a sheet. It's called Healthy Foundations. We talked about a lot of the things that are on that paper already. About the seed oils, the added sugars. All good reminders of foods to be on the lookout for, or foods to stay away from. Keep asking your doctor questions. Never be afraid to question your doctor, ask for more information. You know, you're really the advocate for your kids' health, so don't be afraid to, you know, ask for more research or what their thoughts are on things. Basic lab panels, we'll talk about that in a slide or two, and then some advanced lab testing as well. So basic lab panel, for 1-year-olds, they recommend a complete blood count or CBC and lead profile. Now this can be done very easily. I was surprised when my daughter turned 1, how well she held still and got her blood drawn. Some kids may be better than others, but it is worth it to get things checked out sooner rather than later. And then if your kids are having signs or symptoms, or for kids 8 and above, maybe going for more of a comprehensive or in-depth type of blood panel. So looking more at that complete blood count, a complete metabolic panel, lipid panel, looking at cholesterol, vitamin G, magnesium, vitamin B12, then looking at your omega-3 and omega-6 ratio. So here again are some key nutrients for a healthy brain. Unfortunately, our soil isn't as fruitful as it once was. We're not getting all of our nutrients from our foods like it was a few years ago. So we're lacking in things like antioxidants, magnesium, B vitamins, zinc. So trying to get more of these foods, not only from our diet, but you know, if we have to supplement, we can do that if need be. Here again are those dietary sources of omega-3s. The beef liver, we have the flax seeds, cod liver oil, salmon, tuna, mackerel, walnuts. I'd say those are some of the more common sources. But we also have supplements that we could use. So if you are having an omega-3 supplement and it gives you that fish burp, or you feel like you're kind of belching after you eat it and kind of tastes fishy, that would be a good sign that it's probably rancid and not the best quality. We, at the end of the presentation, we have a link to our site at Victress that has some really good omega-3 supplements. Do any of you give your kids omega-3 supplements right now? Few of you do. So this one here is an example of a liquid, or there's gummies. All of those would be okay to go ahead and give your kids.
Everyone just be careful and, cause now they're like, well, I think Walmart, CVS, like they, starting to get sued over their, omega products as they're synthetic, and then they're causing more things. Like I've even had patients that have come and said like, oh, I've had mini strokes. I'm like, oh, what are you taking? And like, they're like, I've been taking 4 times the dose of this. I'm like, oh my gosh. So like, just be careful. Don't just like, oh, they need to take omega-3. I'm going to run to Kroger and grab, it's like quality really matters. So like, we're totally always happy to help if, you're like, need to text us or email us, or I think my email's up there at the end, like, oh my gosh, is this good? Help us kind of sift through, because there's lots of products out there. It gets very confusing. So
A common one for omega-3s, they like to put ethyl esters into it. So
yes.
if you see that on the food label or on your ingredient list in the omega-3, put it back on the shelf.
Ethyl esters, right?
Ethyl esters, yeah. So be on the lookout for that.
So if a typical kiddo who's healthy, no autoimmune disorders or behaviors, like you still feel like they should take omega-3, even if they're eating lots of walnuts, or
If they're doing okay and you're limiting their seed oils, may not be as necessary. It could be something to talk to your doctor about. But if you wanted to kind of be extra sure that they're getting in those omega-3s, it could be good too. Especially because, like we saw, their brain's 60% developed at the age of 5. So making sure they do get that at a young age isn't going to harm anything, as long as it's coming from a good source and not just some dummy that we found at the grocery store. We also have multivitamins. So here's a multivitamin, the Brain MD brand, trace minerals, all of those would be good. Make sure whenever you are looking for multivitamins that it is methylcobalamin as compared to some cyanocobalamin. The methylcobalamin is already the active form, so there's no, it doesn't need to be activated. So unfortunately, cyanocobalamin is commonly found in things like vitamin water, body almond drinks. Trying to look for, of course, the methylcobalamin would be a better option.
And they market it as like the B vitamin infused. Gotta be really careful, because just turn it over and make sure that doesn't see the easiest way to remember it. It's cyano, so like cyanide. You remember what that is? It's poison. So just anytime you're like, oh, this looks great, like B vitamin, and just turn it over and just see like, how are they getting the B vitamins in there? So it's really, really hard to find anything that's flavored or, vitamin infused that isn't synthetic also, so you're better off to just do water or, of course, electrolyte packets.
So like, I guess a question, like, let's say my kids like the taste of body armor.
Mhm.
Is it bad to give them that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's where we, if you've heard of like we like the salt drinks, SALLT or LMNT. I find that salt's a little bit cheaper and we like it better, but LMNT has like electrolytes, it has magnesium in it. They come in little packets or scoops. So obviously it's not going to be a smooth transition for like, Mom, I want my body armor. Now Dude Perfect, of course. It's like
Yeah.
they're, sponsors and stuff. So, just, oh, sorry, I forgot that one today. We're gonna drink, whatever it takes, but just kind of test it, try it out,
Had
so.
just made, homemade Gatorade. And it has coconut water in it, has water, it has sea salt, and then it's supposed to have Himalayan, but I didn't have it, so I used sea salt. And then I used honey as a sugar, and then I used frozen fruit. So the frozen fruit I had was like kiwi, mango, and strawberries, and I mixed it up. And I mean, I'm drinking it. I mean, it's good. So,
Yeah.
and the two boys that were sick the last 2 days, I mean, they needed something, so that's what they drink. So it's, I mean, it was super easy. It's a lot, but it's easy.
What do you think of I had to look up, I just saw something on LMNT, the maltodextrin.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big.
That's
thing
why I've
right
kind of been
now.
going more with salt because it's been
Yeah, I
controversial.
stopped buying
It's
it
like
2
such a
months ago because
minimal,
I-
minimal amount. It's called maltodextrin. Yeah, it's just a minimal amount, but
So it seems like LMNT is really under fire right now.
yeah, because it seems like they kind of hit it a little bit. So if they
Yeah,
would have just
yeah.
said, hey, we have this, and so
But
Is it in
so
the
the trace
packets
minerals
or
are
like the
good.
can? I thought the packets were
Oh.
cleaner than the cans.
I thought it was in the packets
Maybe
too
it
when I looked it
Yeah,
up,
I looked
but
at my.
I mean, we're
I
getting
haven't
pretty
gotten it
nitty
all.
gritty, but
Yeah, I just
um,
had to ask.
yes,
But the trace minerals is a swap for that. Have you heard
yes.
of the BUY brand?
I don't think so.
Boy.
No.
I've heard
Oh, never mind. That's
You don't know.
BAI. I was thinking BAI.
It's like a
The
sport.
buy seems to be okay. Oh, no, I haven't seen that one. Yeah, you
You've
can
heard
send
of
it to us.
I've heard of it, but I haven't looked at it at all.
I had
Mhm.
some nice buying that a few months ago when I saw the LMNT thing,
Hmm.
and it's
Or
just like,
there's
it's almost
also
like
Relight.
Mio, it's
Is
in those
that-
little squirt things, but
I
there's
don't
no
know.
flavor, so it was easier than,
Mm.
it was just like.
Yeah.
put in, Like if my kids were sick or something.
Yeah. I know the BAI brand is pretty good too. Buy, it's like buy,
Oh,
so
the
Kroger has
basket?
them. Yeah. Last I checked.
We use the, just ingredients electrolytes.
We have that
There you
too.
go.
That's
My
like the
kids
only
go,
thing my kids
but they
will.
won't, it's like
Oh,
you
they
said,
won't drink that?
well, they will for 2
Okay.
weeks and then,
It's like the
Yeah.
only thing
Then
my
it's
kids
boring
will
again.
Yeah.
consistently
yeah.
Mhm.
drink.
The Ultima is also pretty good. Any of you have
Mhm.
Ultima?
Mm-mm.
That one's pretty good. It's not as high in the sodium as LMTs, but
Mhm.
Ultima's good too.
That's kind of controversial, but I've kind of started to change my mind on, it depends on which kid it is, right? If one's that's like super into sugar and can't have much, but like if they're sick or if I know we haven't had anything today, they're like, okay. And I usually try to reserve it for, parties or things or like juices, but they're saying like, hey, our bodies are, designed to have things like apples and oranges and stuff like that. Like a little bit of like juice is okay, but don't make that their like
Mhm.
on the daily because they are the only want to ask for that, but yeah.
What are your thoughts on like the Juice Plus instead of doing multivitamins?
Personally, I would go for more of a good quality multivitamin as compared to the Juice Plus.
Okay.
The concept is really good, but unfortunately, there's some things in there that can't really take the fruits and vegetables and put it into a powder and make it just as good. So I would go for more of a good
I
multi.
just went through that, so I've been taking Juice Plus, and I still take it. But I had noticed, and I just got labs done at Victress, and I noticed that some of my minerals and vitamins were very low, because I wasn't taking a multivitamin at all. And so I've started adding in a multivitamin and like a beef liver, because my iron was really low, and that has helped in addition to, the Juice Plus. So I know that was something that Erin had shared with me too, was that Juice Plus is good, the concept is great, but It's just
It's like the
food.
micronutrition, it's not like the minerals and things like that, it's not.
That's what it's missing.
Mhm.
So there's also additional testing if you feel like you yourself or your kids need it. We have food sensitive testing looking at IgGs, which would be a reaction to different types of foods. This is an example of what a food sensitivity would look like. So you can see the different proteins over here. And then I didn't show it, but this would be the IgA response versus the IgG response. Of course, if it's elevated, then that would indicate a reaction. We also have something called a wheat zoomer, which really looks at intestinal permeability or leaky gut. We look at things like zonulin, antioactin, or bacteria, or LPS. And we want to make sure we fix the gut first. That can really lay the foundation for all different types of things. So these tests, again, if you feel like your kids are having reactions or just feel like they may need more, definitely talk to your primary care provider about that. And don't be afraid to request things. Erin has told me actually that this can be done for all ages, which is pretty cool, as far as the food sensitivity testing goes. So as far as next steps go, like I said, take things one at a time, write down 1 to 2 changes that you can make to better your family's health. Like I said, maybe it will be, we need to prioritize protein with our breakfast, or we need to, if you pack your kids' lunch, make sure they're getting that protein in then, and so on. So really focus in on what the best step would be and meet your family's needs. Here, and also on your paper, we have our phone number and address for Victress. And also the supplement store, like I said, all of those will be really good quality supplements, so you can ensure that if you would buy one off of that link, those would be good quality supplements, and we update that really frequently. And that's also on your sheet there that was provided. Be sure to follow on YouTube. Lisa has videos on there and different podcasts on there, which are very beneficial and educational. So stay tuned with all of that. And thank you guys all for your time. You guys have been so great to talk to. Thank you. Any other questions or comments, concerns? Yeah.
Do you feel that all kids, regardless of the situation, need to be checked for the MTHFR mutation? Like, is it everyone should just get it done?
Oh, man.
Why don't they?
It's a good question.
That's a good question.
That's why we put the labs up there of like, obviously it's really hard when you're like, I'm gonna have my 3-year-old or my 4-year-old or 5, do it. Usually we try to screen for things like behavioral. Usually you're gonna.
You would see.
So,
I
we
have a version of it. And I didn't know
yes.
that until this past summer, and then I went to
Mhm.
pictures and we talked about it, only
Yeah.
because my dad got blood work and found that he had one. So it just made me think more about it,
Mhm.
and I was like, I was
Yeah.
a good kid, like I didn't
Yes.
have any symptoms as a kid, my parents
Yes.
said, but.
Right. I mean, so, right, in a perfect world, we would all have organic, einkorn, perfect wheat flour. We would all eat sourdough bread. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we should probably all be doing as best as we can, but we cannot, So that's one side of it. The other side of it is there are labs that we can do, for kiddos that like should flag for it, like methylmalonic acid and then B12, should pop up, things like that in kiddos. So that's where we kind of leave it up to like, your child well enough, have a discussion with your provider, like, is this appropriate or not? Because we don't want to keep sticking them if we don't have to, but now that you know what it's kind of like, yes, like, why not? Why wouldn't I do this at 3 years old or 4 or 5 or what, it just depends what you're comfortable with and what you think they can tolerate and what would be good, but you're gonna make me rack my brain.
No concerns with my kids.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's something like if you what did we say? It's something where like anywhere between 30 to 40% of people have some sort of methylation issue. When we talk about methylation, that's when your DNA like replicates. And so it's a detoxification process. So can't do that. It can be kind of harmful. And so I think it's like 30 to 40% of Americans have this issue.
50% of women.
And then it's higher if you have a family member and, higher women, so then that's where we're seeing, connections to thyroid and connections to other things. So getting into the nitty gritty, but I think that's a great point. So we actually go in with companies a lot and advocate for them to like, why are you testing these things? You should be doing these things. You're paying for these people's healthcare, So those are the things that we kind of say to them, like, hey, we should have tested for that, So again, I say at this point, it's probably up to you, your provider, what you need, but that's a great point.
I feel like most providers don't know.
Oh, they don't know
Might be
anything
a-
about
might be
it.
like-
Nope. Yep. You're exactly right. Yep.
They would be like, "What's that?"
That's correct. Yeah.
I hadn't either until my dad got this blood work done and his doctor, who's a hematologist, knows blood very well, said
Mhm.
your children should get checked. And even, like went on to ask my dad if he had any daughters that had miscarriages.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, and so we were trying to conceive, and so I was like, okay, I need to do something, which is why you guys were really helpful, but I was like, nobody knows about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just one gene mutation. That's the problem. Like MTHFR is like super popular one. And then there's like 8. There's like 40 of them. So
Yeah.
it comes to the point where like we can test all of them. So, but it's also like, well, why don't I just do the things that I should be doing to be healthy? And obviously we all fall on that spectrum somewhere, whereas
This
can't be
folic acid
perfect,
is in
but,
a lot of
you know,
snacks.
mhm.
Anything
So-
like enriched, yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
enriched.
Anything
Yeah,
with bread
enriched.
or cereal or pasta, it's just.
So then it becomes, can I do it 40% of the time, 60%, I'm not gonna be perfect, like, we're gonna have birthday cake or we're gonna make, but, just trying to be as realistic as possible and just keep kind of moving the mark. Yeah, great point. Yeah.
I have a question. What are some more like ideas for omega-3s? Because I know Anna Marie's not eating salmon and walnuts every day. Like, just to
We
be-
do cod liver oil and my
Okay.
kids don't, I don't know, I bought it at the Nature's Cornucopia, I forget what brand it is.
Yeah.
But they don't say anything about it, like, I think it has like a lemony taste or an
Mhm.
orange taste, I can't remember what flavor I bought, but. I should probably take it too.
We put it with honey,
Mix it in
yeah,
something.
I didn't bring ours because it looks all oily and, but we'll put the honey with the omega and that's easy, but, beef liver is super popular now too. We were talking about protein powders. I found a protein powder that has beef liver in it too, and just find ways to sneak it in.
Like put that in her smoothies or something?
Mhm.
My kids
Yeah.
can taste the beef liver.
I know, I was
I don't know
like.
what-
Yeah.
you buy in the
This
brand,
one
kids
is,
can
yeah,
taste.
what was it called? I have to,
Perfect.
what was that?
Yeah,
Perfect.
perfect.
My kids can taste that.
I don't think
too.
so.
I'm like, those girls.
I think it was like
Silly.
with love or something like that. I
Okay.
don't know.
Mixed together.
Yeah, it was good.
Just take the-
Got an earthy taste to it.
Hmm.
I know it's the next level, but if you have like raw beef liver and it's frozen, like from, if you get half a spear, full spear,
Mhm.
put it in the freezer, you can always like keep it frozen, but shave it in soups. So you're not using whole thing.
Or ground beef
Shave it.
and some tacos. Yeah,
And you
I
don't
did.
taste,
And you don't need a
taste
lot.
it.
Yeah.
We did do that. Chili soup.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will give the beef liver away for free, from what I've seen, because people don't want it, although maybe
Yeah.
there's more of a movement now.
Yeah.
Now they know how much it's worth.
I know. Now people are like,
So back to Juice Plus, they make an omega-3, obviously. I take that. Can you break that capsule open and like put it in like yogurt or
My
something?
kids just chew it up, honestly.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't have the chew, I just have like the.
No, it's just the omega capsule.
They will
My
chew that up?
1-year-olds just suck on it and chew it up. Yeah, it just dissolves really fast.
Okay, do you just give them one then?
Yeah.
Okay, of like is there a kid version that I should be getting?
Nope,
Okay.
just the adult. Like it tastes like orange mint kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, you get a little bit of.
I don't know, my
whatever we
kids will
have
eat it, but
going
I'll
on,
sprinkle it
it's
on
like-
something.
I used to mix it in with the applesauce too. I put
Okay.
that on applesauce a lot when they were babies.
Okay.
We try to do fish once a week and just,
Like
don't-
salmon.
yeah, then you're doing great. I mean, you're doing
I
great.
just don't know,
Yeah.
like once a week, that's probably good then.
Yeah, once or twice a week
I
is
know,
great. That's
other
what like,
stuff You won't eat like, you're not gonna eat walnuts unless I put that in like a muffin or something.
mhm. Chia seeds, flax seeds, yeah.
She liked those,
Mhm.
Yeah, I could do that, yeah.
but pumpkin seeds and walnuts.
Oh, yeah.
Well, does it matter with the flax? I got away from that, but does it have to be like ground flax, but then it goes rancid faster? But the seeds you don't absorb as
No,
well.
right,
Like, do you use
exactly.
a specific one or?
I haven't, based on a while, but yes, I mean, ideally
Okay.
it's ground.
Okay.
But
Like a specific kind of oatmeal or like oats.
man, that's another can of worms.
I know.
Our fathers,
It's really
or
like
his,
that.
whatever they changed the name to, his saving grains or no?
See, I've stayed away from it too, just because of the methylation issues too that we're, we're seeing.
With oats,
Mhm.
like even
Yeah.
like the raw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's another reaction. So we didn't want to get into this, but I put it on there. I don't know yeah, this is the plant-based one, but so, and this is where it's just specific, and this is like just what we preach all day is like it's being personalized. Like it just has to be specific. We want to just be told what to eat, but what we're finding with all plants is that they really are kind of designed to protect themselves, and so we're finding some people react better or worse to oats because they have these toxins in them to protect themselves, right? Like the idea being that the fruit was meant to be eaten, right? It fell off the tree, it meant to spread the seeds, right? And so like that's what we were meant to eat versus the leaves, the roots, things like that. And so oats, I can't remember the compound that it gives off, but it's been found to be more contributory to things like autoimmune and stuff like that. So again, it's just like, where do you fall on that spectrum? Can you tolerate it? Can you not? Is it something, if you think about probably how we were designed, we wanted to go kill the lion or go kill that, but were there times that we needed to gather foods and we needed to, sustain ourselves? So it's probably in flux, where it's probably why the kids are like good for 2 weeks and then,
And then
you probably have some sort of innate that's like, that's too much, so just having that flow a little bit, and being flexible, but there's this whole, movement, I think we'll continue to hear more and more about it of like plant toxins and that's the oxalates that, Beth was talking about earlier is
That's what I read. Is that what that
oxalate.
doctor? Yeah.
Yes.
We rotate our greens because of that, but then I was like, oh, is it still an issue then, even if we're rotating?
So like it's in all the like common superfoods like blueberries and spinach and dark chocolate and like so they're contributing that to things like kidney stones and arthritis and so it's again we're splitting hairs here but like it's why you're seeing folks that are like really struggling with autoimmune and mental health and skin issues. They're going extreme like carnivore to like heal and then reintroduce and see how their body does. Because we're just, like you said, soil's depleted and we're kind of refiguring it out what our bodies need.
And then more,
Yeah.
sorry if this, my
Yeah.
mom was just diagnosed with cancer. And so she is gone, like, she got the
Ugh.
book Crispy Cancer and
Yeah.
his is all like raw vegan was his plan. And like, I'm sure it's probably person specific, but so that seems like the exact opposite. Cause I know we did a lot of Dr. Axe and he's all like meats and
Mhm.
healthy, like grass fed meats and bone broth. And it's like two different spectrums. Which way would you go for that? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So obviously you're going to see a ton of good results on something like vegan because you've eliminated a lot of the seed oils, a lot of the issues from that. If you're staying whole foods, number one, that's great. What we're seeing though, is even folks that are struggling with anxiety, depression, autoimmune type issues are struggling on like a vegan diet and now going back, to more like carnivore. And that's why it's getting more and more popular. Obviously it depends if you're getting McDonald's meat versus like,
It's like they said,
So-
was it, Chris Hemsworth went on like a vegan diet and then he got like kidney stones or something because he had like spinach smoothies 3 times a day or something.
that's the oxalates we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody's gonna, this is where I'm like, you can't eat anything, but there's,
It's
yeah,
a
um,
variety and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Variety, listen to your body,
Mhm.
keep asking, don't be attached to any one, thing, keep learning. I mean, yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Good. Okay, everybody good? And we'll kind of hang out if anybody, has questions or wants to, whatever. I don't even know what time it is. Are we way over? I don't even know.
Was it?
Yeah, we're not too bad. So we'll hang out, but thanks guys for, listening and everything. So. Cool. Yeah.
Curious, like, what do you offer at your shop? Facility. Interest.
As far as like the supplement store or what?
Like, what do people come into Victor's for?